Are you feeling the energy? I'm seeing the energy. As we move forward here, onwards and upwards in our pirate ship in the sky. This music joining us as we sail through the clouds. Artist Journal, September 25th, 2024. Broadcasting with funky hair. In Berlin, Germany, my name's Adrian Pocobelli. Continuing this dance I do. Again, and sometimes when you're dancing, your hair gets out of whack here. So forgive it all. I can't delay any longer, and I was. Sometimes you just, sometimes you're procrastinating. I guess everybody knows what that's about. So maybe you saw this. Let me just make sure our mic is on here. Okay, this got like 620,000 views. Just gorgeous. And another great example of how much talent is out there. This came out September 22nd. How much talent is out there and just how rich we are, how wealthy we are with just, invention. We're going to see comments about how everything's been done from the contemporary art side of things. And to me, as I always say here, we're just scratching the surface in digital art. And here we have, really beautifully done, I would say, for lack of a better term. What is this? This is ASCII. I want to call it ASCII collage. I don't think that's necessarily accurate. I mean, what do we have here? We have overlapping ASCII text where, let me make this large for you. First of all, you see here, and there's something kind of special about this ASCII text. This is also, I think we could call ASCII. These are, for those that used, I think it was typed.art, you might be familiar with this, with these works. You might remember way back when I made the 909s, the 808s out of this thing. It's basically ASCII text here, but there's, four different or five different textures. And here, of course, ASCII, it's text. But you can have the full, black version. You can have the, half-filled black square, etc. This is really special. First of all, as I like to say here, it's the reptilian effect that really, I would say, it maybe takes less than a second before you recognize what you're looking at, but you love it already. It is pre-rational, I would argue prelingual, which is why words are kind of a second best way of dealing with it. This works on a visual level. What, again, I call, for lack of a better term, on the reptilian level. This just works, and in a sense, that's all that really needs to be said about it. But we can comment on it. There does seem to be a couple of layers. Like if you had to hazard a guess, right, on how this was made, which as artists, and this being an artist journal, we all love to do here. If you had to have, what would you say? Well, okay, first of all, there seems to be the original painting. Hilariously, you still see the signature here. And I think actually nicely, to get rid of the signature would be a little bit of maybe overstepping the use of this work. So I think that's cool that the signature is kept. But as you can see here, I mean, what would you call this? Maybe an 18th century still life? Right? Perhaps, a painting, a photographic reproduction of a painting online, probably in the form of a JPEG. So that's what you have. And then it looks like with these blank areas here, that part of it has been masked out, and I would say really smoothly. Let me just show you here. I mean, unless it's just an unfinished painting, which is also possible, but really smoothly masked out, almost as if it looks like it's the original work that is unfinished. You see how, and the reason I mention that is because I have done a lot of masking, and the first thing that might happen is you might get a pretty crisp digital edge, and we don't have that here. And I have to say, it looks quite natural. And we also see, as you can see here, a little bit of texture in the white. Interestingly. I mean, is that my screen? I mean, do you see it too? Very interesting, just in the masking alone. So it looks like we have source image, painting, let's call it 18th, 17th century oil painting in the form of a JPEG, digital reproduction. Then we have probably, if I had to hazard a guess here, we have about 2 different renderings of this work, let's say put into an ASCII program where it turns everything, ASCII filter, shall we call it, where it turns the work into, where it basically filters the work into text, right? We've basically all more or less seen that before. And doing it in this version with the text, and then in the second version with just what you might call the ASCII visual elements that I was commenting on at the start, where I think there's about 5. There's this kind of full block, then there's the almost full block, then there's the middle block, and then you start getting kind of more spaced out blocks, which I don't know if we see here. Maybe that, not sure. But there's about 4 or 5, and then you start to see that kind of rendering also. So it looks to me as if there are basically, again, to summarize here, we have the original work, we mask out or cut out a few areas here. Those areas are chosen for the text side of things. You notice for the text, and then you have the visual, what I'm calling visual ASCII, in the form of this, whatever this is, which is not overtop masked fruit here, and also, almost, you almost don't even see it. It looks arguably so natural. You have it over top of the background too, that is not masked. I would argue a surprisingly complex image to a certain degree, and what I love about it, and I think it's the only one, I have several works here of this artist, and let's look at the name of the artist here. It's Enigmatris, who I believe is on Super Rare, but doesn't have these works on Super Rare. Let me just see if I can go back here. So I would say it's very powerful. So we see a lot of examples here. So we've figured this out, and again, a massive 650,000 or 620,000 views, 5,000 retweets. The people are having their say, and again, it's always fun to compare this as has been done here on earlier shows to, how Gagosian or a lot of the, high-end contemporary art galleries are doing on Twitter, on X, and maybe that's fair enough. It's more Instagram, the land of those galleries, but nevertheless, I think if Gagosian put out a work like this, I think it would probably perform as well, I would argue. So, or one would hope. So interesting. And let's just see the comment here. A painting modified by ASCII elements. So Enigmatris, and here's the account, 7,500 followers, commissions open. And some of these are on Foundation. Now live on Foundation, 10 one-of-ones, only 0.05 ETH. This was posted 6 days ago. So I just saw these yesterday. I was very impressed. So here it is on Foundation, and some are still available. This one here is still available. This one is taken. Almost all of them have sold. Arguably quite interesting there with the horse. And here you have animals. And here actually you have the visual ASCII as well. Here, right? But there's something about that colorful one that really knocks your socks off. And I think it's the contrast. I think it's the black and white text kind of blotting out the underneath, or the visual ASCII blotting out the underneath, and then also the masking. I think the masking is really important. And so here, it's not, let's say, as colorful. Still very interesting, though. Almost looks like some sort of, drawing of a certain kind from the future, almost. Here's another very interesting work. And look at the kind of pink, lines here. And again, collection ASCII Explorations, Ethereal Speed. Here are more. Here is what looks like a horse and just text, no visual ASCII here. And here, I thought this was quite interesting as well, because it's using what you might call negative, the negative or the inverse. So using black and then white text, and then interestingly blotting out, still masking out in this very softly edged mask, these what look like deer. We have more. So here's color, but no. So here's a thought experiment. Imagine the visual ASCII text over certain areas here. Over, let's say, the sky, using that first process. These are explorations. I found, because these are all kind of head-turning works. Here's another one. But it's very interesting why that first one really jumps out at you, isn't it? Sky is the limit. So here, almost looking like an Evel Knievel character. Let's see if we can zoom in. And here you see the different visual ASCII. Maybe again, I'd guess about 5 different versions of that kind of 2x1 pixel, quote unquote. And here, interestingly, gray text over top. So interesting in the sense that many of us, I would even venture to say like a significant amount of us have played around with ASCII text. And it's really interesting to see, someone really taking it to that next level, because ASCII text looks pretty cool. So it always gets kind of tempting to kind of leave it when you do it. And it's like, oh, isn't that cool? But this person, similar to what we were seeing with RJ and AI, is incorporating this effect, using AI almost as an effect with RJ, or creating the composition, using ASCII as your effect, and then incorporating it into a larger process is where I'm going here. And here you see the mask of the motorbike. But again, interestingly, in that first one, we also get the contrast of, let's say, the curve of the lemon with the rectangular visual ASCII. Here we get the almost what you might say this geometric text, right? It's all precise with the circular, rough, organic edges. And I think that's why this one really jumps out. They're all beautiful, which is why I'm showing them. But just an interesting study in really, what makes an image work. This is gorgeous too, by the way. You might say a simpler one. I'm still crying out for a little bit of the visual ASCII here. But it's gorgeous. So incredibly inventive and smart work here by Enigmatriz. Another beautiful one. Doesn't that look like Dan Controls? I have a feeling they use the same source image online, which I kind of love, actually. Like, is this the first, I don't know if this is a seagull or what you'd call this thing, a heron? Is this the first image you see of a heron? Who knows? But hilarious. This is interesting, too. True explorations here. And here we see blue on blue, orange, red on orange, black on pink. Domestic dogs. So I don't know if I'd use the word scattered, but a large variety of images here. I'm kind of all over this. I think Enigmatriz made a breakthrough. It was at their super rare, and I didn't see any of this. I think it's a recent breakthrough, interestingly. And it's something I've kind of mentioned here a lot, which is try new technologies, try different things. Art is, as I say here, art is, to use the Greek techne, art is technology. I would argue, and we are, in a sense, these processes, I would argue, are basically technologies, invented technologies. They're image-making technologies. Okay, that's why when we hear this discussion of contemporary art running out of, you know, ideas, it's because they're not incorporating enough new technology, and the more new technology that gets incorporated, the more ideas you have. ASCII text is a great example here. So stunning work by, Enigmatras, commissions open. So just rad, just gorgeous, all of them, gorgeous here. We didn't even look at everything on Foundation. So simple. I would argue, as complex as that process is, once you kind of find the process, discovered to a certain degree the process, that, now it's a matter of, okay, what are you going to do with this? Are you you could do just Dutch still lifes if you wanted to. I mean, that would sell till, I would argue, because they're working on that reptilian level, they'll just keep selling. So anyways, congratulations to Enigmatras for really putting in the work and discovering, and look at that, 650,000 views there. One wonders, probably got a couple of thousand followers, I'd imagine, at least, from that post. Let's continue here. Little Cakes is on today on digital art, AI video, and everything that Little Cakes finds interesting. We've had Little Cakes has been on the spaces before, but not as a featured guest, just as someone coming on stage and talking. So really thrilled to finally have Little Cakes on. And big thank you. This has even more views. Last I checked on the real, we're at over 700 views here, which is pretty good for YouTube. So interesting. It's always done pretty well on Twitter, on X, but YouTube, this is a pretty good number. So thank you for the support there. And let's look at the really nice comments we got here. Julian Rappolini. The only series I'm not bored of. Merci, Monsieur Poco. You're very welcome. Mon plaisir, my friend. I think that's correct, French. They say dis rien. Say nothing, but I'm not a big fan of dis rien, but I understand what it means. Anyways, always fun to practice the French. Thank you, Julien. Fantastique. Kyle Flemmer, hi, Adrian. Another great episode. Really appreciate the deep dive into RJ's recent series. Thanks for touching on my Medium article and showing a couple of my recent works. It's always an honor to be a part of the show. Well, thank you for the comment, Kyle. And glad you're enjoying it. You can see Kyle is just like neck deep in this scene. And it's not like I'm even trying. It's just like, oh, that's cool. On-chain art of space. Oh, that's cool. It's not even like I'm even trying. So very cool, Kyle. Great to hear from you. Louis JPD. My go-to YouTube series after getting home after a long day of study and creativity at art school. A splendid mingling of education, entertainment, and enlightening insider information about the innovative artistic aspirations and ever-morphing pursuits of the DigiArt vanguard. Uplifting and encouraging, creating good vibe ripples. Bravo. Thank you for the very nice comment, Louis. And I think we've heard from you before, I want to say a couple of months ago, maybe longer. So anyways, it's really awesome to have you here, and I really appreciate the comment. And I didn't realize you're at art school. So very cool. Hashboy, I've been looking for a modern visual art channel like yours for a very long time. I mean, very nice. Thrilled that people are enjoying this. Skull Takes, wonderful show. Those RJ works are so beautiful. Thank you for also featuring more on-chain work and discussion. I'm always intrigued by art that uses blockchain as a medium or as a conceptual aesthetic constraint. And I think the reason why it's so fascinating is, like Dr. Bill was saying on the space, it's almost like science fiction. And again, and I'm kind of back, and we're going to see a comment on this, me mentioning Bitcoin. To put work on Bitcoin, it's all about what is the drive to do it, and it's all about preservation and this idea of what will last. And if we're going around on starships from planet to planet, which is not impossible, all of a sudden art on the blockchain, particularly Bitcoin, starts to be, are you going to bring, as I always say, are you going to bring on your 18th century painting onto the spaceship? Maybe, but really probably leave that on Earth. So I'm totally fascinated by this on-chain thing. And what I also love about it is how new it is, right? Like, I mean, how long have we had blockchain, at least in the form of crypto, since, 14 years since Bitcoin, 15, right? So we're very early on this whole thing. And how long have we been putting art, and there's a big debate on that, Bitcoin stamps and rare pepes, all that sort of thing. But it's fascinating. And we're still arguably in the big picture very early. Bijou too. Love your videos, Adrian. They're so important. Thank you for making them. Feeling the love here. And I got a couple of messages just from friends on WhatsApp saying like basically similar things. So thank you, everybody, for the support here. It is much appreciated. Jeremy Austin, emulation of digital brushes. This is interesting. Emulation of digital brushes has given rise to so much art being created with these amazing tools. But it is just that, an emulation of the physical by a computer. A computer can do a seriously great job at this point in time, whether it be manually painting, drawing, or training AI using prompts. But the lure of creating a one-to-one scale with the pixel is so seductive. The simple on-off of a chosen point in digital space is the foundation of computer-aided visualization. Hard to disagree with. It is digital simulation in its most fundamental state. Thanks for the feature, Pocobelli. Keep on keeping on. So this is really interesting. I have a few things to say about this. First of all, as far as these emulations, I used to wonder to myself, is this conceptually kosher, so to speak? Does this make sense conceptually? And my evolution on this idea of using digital brushes that emulate physical brushes was the work of Hasdrubal Waffle, where there's just this who cares approach, as you see with like the big kind of sculpted, paintbrush work, where it's sort of like, if it works, it works, and don't get too wrapped up on the conceptual end of things, depending on your series. So that's kind of where I'm at now with digital brushes. I used to feel, and I still do feel, a certain reservation of what does this mean? And I think you have to ask yourself as an artist, does it make sense within the series that I'm doing, conceptually speaking? However, if it works, I wouldn't fight it too much either, is sort of where I'm at with the digital brush. And again, I kind of look at Waffle's work. Who cares is kind of like the sense of if this is a digital emulation of a physical brush, and it doesn't matter to the work, I would argue. Now, in terms of this other aspect, the one-of-one scale with basically using the pixel, we're back to the weird, I'd say, resilience of pixel art in our discussion. Pixel art got into this show kind of against my, first instinct, which was, I'm not sure that this goes in, but eventually I just go, am I not going to put a Gogolitis work in this show? And so I evolved into really, now I put, as John Cates says, you love you some pixel art. Like I celebrate a ton of it. And I think the resilience is exactly as you're saying here, Jeremy, which is the pixel is the fundamental building block of the digital canvas, shall we say, or digital computing, visual computing. And as such, it has significance, relevance, right? It has a kind of value, and it is worth paying attention to. It has, again, it's almost like this resilience to it. RJ was mentioning a similar, if not an identical idea on the spaces we did with him over a year ago. This idea of the pixel being the fundamental unit of digital art. And as such, pixel art kind of has a kind of essential, inherent importance, interestingly. So very interesting comment on what we could loosely call digital mark making. From Jeremy Austin, thank you for the comment. Ah, heck, the best program, as I say, the best audience. Thank you, ah, heck, Joshua Sobel. Roon Toon, do you really think 1,000 years? You keep using that measurement. This is at least the 4th time you've mentioned Bitcoin lasting 1,000 years. Well, hopefully more. When I think of 1,000 years, I think of archaeologists. And sure, maybe there will be internet and Bitcoin archaeologists in the future. Maybe you're right. That is ultimately the bet, is that this is probably the most resilient way of preserving art, period, in any medium. Perhaps. I feel like in 50 years, Bitcoin will feel like a penny and other blockchains will feel like a farthing. So, totally possible. Completely, totally possible. You know what'll be interesting? Like, imagine Bitcoin goes to 0, right? But that the blockchain, for whatever reason, still works. It's hard to imagine, actually, those two things coexisting. But if they did, one could argue the most valuable thing on Bitcoin would be the art. If you could still kind of buy and sell it. If it's not hacked, basically. Quantum computing, all that. Thank you for the comments there on YouTube. Really interesting. And thank you for the support on X here. Really great to hear from everybody. Rosatio, Poco, great to hear from you, Rosatio. Just an awesome artist on this ground. Not the empty nihilism of millennial MFAs. This scene is exactly at the forefront of energy and relevance. In a sense, we see it again here. At the start of this show, just boom. Oh, who's this person? That's pretty cool. It's August Ground also says, it's astonishing how everything lacking can be found flourishing in this world, the formal experimentation and birth of new genres of expression. This is the white-hot center of global art culture. And I remember also RJ saying a similar thing in the space that we did, which was, yeah, according to RJ, and I do agree with them, and I think I agree with August here too, that, you know, this is kind of the most exciting thing going down right now. I would argue, I think that's why we're all so passionate about it. That's how we see it, you know, at least from my perspective. And that's all you can do is speak from your own perspective. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's the most exciting thing going on right now. And what's cool is how uncelebrated it is to the large degree. It's so small, right? Just exciting. Braindead, hello there, Adrian. Thanks for the mention. Awesome to hear from you, Braindead. We have a work by you. Beautiful work on Super Rare. Very cool pixel artwork. Rural Idol, thanks for the props, Poco, and for preserving with that Saints piece loading. Appreciate you. You're welcome. You are welcome. I'm very curious to hear. Saints is like a digital art subscription service, if you're on Tezos. I love this concept. I kind of want to participate, but it's just kind of a time issue. Maybe at some point I will. I'm curious to see how it does, if this actually catches on. I don't see why not. If you love an artist and you just want to get exclusive artworks and you subscribe, sounds rad. So that's on Tezos. August Ground, I refute it thus. Hilarious. Awesome to hear from you, August. Wojak, agree with you. Tezos has a pretty sustainable economics for both artists and collectors. Nice easy chair, thank you. And big shout out to Howdy Do as well. Thank you for the comment, Wojak. Absurd Deity. Great show as always, Adrian. Have to admit, I've only recently begun watching Artist Journal as the length of each episode was frankly scaring me away. Yeah, I mean, it's the ongoing dilemma that I have, which is I would prefer to make this from a commercial point of view. This should be 10 to 20 minutes, right? And here we are at minute 30, and we haven't even really started looking at the art apart from our first. And look at all the comments we have. Like this is likely going to be another hour and 20-minute show. I struggle with this. I've kind of embraced it a little bit and just accepted it, that this is the show. And let's continue to hear what Absurd Deity has to say. A few weekends ago, I had a chunk of free time and thought, what the hell, let's give this a go. And I was hooked. Ended up binge watching a half dozen episodes. Amazing. I'm really thrilled and excited by the response that the show is getting. One comment you made, which I hope will be true for a bit longer, as I've only now discovered this artist through your show, is that it's still possible to get a Yuri J for 12 Tezos. I fear that with the exception of open editions, the window has closed. This window has closed or will rapidly be doing so. Still lots of great art to be collected for incredible deals relative to the quality. What I would say about this is Yuri J is kind of what you might call, some people are calling it Yuri J season. Can't remember who is calling it that. But Yuri J is kind of like, you might say, the hot artist of the moment, or one of the hot kind of artists of the moment. So generally this passes. It is a boom and bust business. And hopefully for Yuri's sake, he just keeps going from summit to summit. But usually what happens is you get hot and then the market kind of moves on to something else, and then you kind of keep some core collectors, and then all the speculators tend to lower their prices. So from a purely, and not financial advice, but from a purely speculative point of view, there's going to be other awesome artists that you find on the blockchain. You could have got some RJs for 20 Tezos or 100 Tezos, one of those gorgeous works, at least at auction, and wait and fight it out with people. But those phones, I think, were only 20 Tezos, 1999, I believe. So all to say, there's a lot of good artists out there. So if someone's really getting a lot of attention, you may want to look somewhere else from a purely just financial point of view. One artist that immediately comes to mind is the still unbelievable affordable category is Yellow Yokamira, and which, as I've only watched the most recent dozen artist journals, I'm not sure if you've had the chance to feature. So let's actually open that quickly, and finally, August, the preeminence of the screen. So indeed, and hopefully that screen unfreezes as fast as possible as I see it there. You know what that probably was? Is me opening a new tab, which I should avoid doing. But here, actually, I've never I don't think, been on this page. Let's see if we can follow. There we go. We are following Yellow Yokamira. Interesting kind of expressive illustration here. Very interesting work. Thank you for sharing. Super interesting. And there was one comment, that Rural Idol, it was buried in here in August Ground's MFA statement. This was interesting. I've been thinking about this. Rural Idol, I lean towards metamodernism as a catch-all. So we were talking about post-internet art. We were talking about contemporary art as that commentator was mentioning yesterday, as being kind of a movement you could see as kind of like any other movement, like pop art or, modernism, right? And I think that's actually super insightful. I've kind of thought that on a kind of intuitive level, but I'm not sure I've really verbalized it in my head like that. But I completely agree with this idea. So let's see what Rural is talking about here. An openness to art history, mercurial, a hard-on-sleeve earnestness, none of the irony or archness of postmodernism. The term meta, a bit devalued since the manifesto was written in 2011, still worth a read. So meta-modernist. And it brought up an interesting question, this whole, idea, which is, like I was thinking to myself on the S-Bahn here, the kind of overground train in Berlin, is modern art is contemporary art the new modern art? Is the term contemporary art the new modern art? In the sense that when modern art happened, maybe it was called modern art, it was probably called modern art, but they were probably thinking to themselves, like, how are we ever going to get out of this term as we might think of contemporary art? Like, are we permanently in contemporary art? But the reality was actually it did move on. Then we had postmodern art, right? And then postmodern art and contemporary art, you could argue, overlapped a little bit. But now we're in contemporary art, which, according to those posts of those Dean Kissick, those are pretty prominent people, commentators in the contemporary art scene. It sounds to me like another question here is, are we seeing the death, the slow or fast death of contemporary art as the market kind of crashes? And we have a story on that right away. Another more example of that. So here, Rural Idol is calling it, or is referring to metamodernism. I'm kind of over the termism is almost what I want to call it. Everybody's obsessed with or not speaking about rural here, just in general, there's an obsession with having to call something a term. It'll kind of, I think when it happens organically, it'll work. Like pixel art, for example. Like glitch, for example. But I think when you have kind of intellectuals come in and then try and summarize everything without having made it work, that can work, but, like, I'm kind of curious, who was it? Clement Greenberg that came up with abstract expressionism, or someone else? Like, maybe ChatGPT can ask. And so I guess finally, I mean, what does meta mean on the, like, my understanding of meta really goes back to Aristotle's metaphysics. Aristotle didn't call it the metaphysics or the books. It was the lecture notes that were found. And it was the writers, the people who discovered them, the first people who kind of unearthed the works and who were studying them. They're the ones that grouped these works together and then called it the metaphysics, which my understanding of the translation is beyond the physics. So I suppose you could call it, to literally translate this, it means beyond the modernism, right? I guess. Maybe we just go to stuff like pixel art or glitch, maybe just like art on the blockchain. I don't know, but interesting. Thank you for sharing that. We'll have to take a look at this link. It is bookmarked here, but I am a little suspicious. We recognize oscillation to be the natural order of the world. It's already like starting to get a little kind of abstract for me. I don't mind abstraction, but yeah. Let's continue here. Recent posts in the community. Thank you, everybody. Just have a new one. Look at that. By 2002, rad artwork, pixel self-portrait, free mint on Zora. Very cool. From 2002. Thank you for sharing. Just right now on the community. MR Riro, almost late for Tezos Tuesday. Today I'll share an AI animation with Jess Mike Trick and minted on object.com. Artificialis gastropode. And here it is. So very cool. Kind of looks like AI video. Greg Nikshumika, Observation 3, who made that awesome, remember that pixel art unicorn? That was brilliant in black and white. A new series of works on object inspired by sentences on conceptual art by Saul LeWitt. This series is an attempt to be as intuitive and non-cerebral in creation of pieces while contemplating each of the sentences irrationally. So there's no shortage of sophistication here on the blockchain, is there? Thank you for posting, Greg. Very cool. Love your work. Ariel, very cool kind of, abstract pixel art. Very cool. Been very consistent with the style and idea, and I love it. Again, I'm put on Bitcoin. Absurdity. GM Adrian, in one of your recent shows, I believe you discussed how creating art can add to a collector's appreciation of the art. I certainly agree. How creating art can definitely, it can help you understand what's going on more, definitely. I certainly agree, though primarily a collector who cannot draw to save my life, I feel like I've gained a significant added appreciation for artists' efforts and skill by creating my own AI, video glitch, and now glitch photography art, none of which require that I attempt to draw. I think it's so true with so many artists, especially in digital. I imagine like probably 50% don't know how to draw if I had to guess, with a certain degree of competence. I want to shout out a hearty thank you to the artist Danya Darkstone, Let's Glitch It, who circuit bends kids' cameras into amazing Let's Glitch It cameras. We followed those very closely as they're being shipped out. I've now got a couple of those wonderful little cameras, and I've even minted a few images created with them. I'll share here one of the raw images that was displayed at RGB Montreal earlier this year. Thank you, Eizo Labs, for inviting me to participate, and here it is. So very cool. Yeah, those glitch cameras. Look how cool that is. Very interesting and cool. Thank you for posting. Absurdity and Yelo Kemira. Did we see this? No, I don't think we did. Drawing here. Also kind of a expressionist illustration thing going on. Look at that. This person clearly knows how to draw. Yelo. Thank you for posting in the community there. Look at that. Very talented physical work. Son of Stag, my blistered hands tell me someday the rain will come. So look at how, looks like a lot of magic wand going on here. And Interesting work. Not sure. Is this almost looks like AI, but hard to tell. Not sure what's going on here. A lot of it looks like effects on effects. Very cool. Nice colors. From Son of Stag and Novus, recent collage piece. These could actually hang in the same show. The Mind Departed, Tech 1. Very cool work here by Novus. Thank you for posting. And that, my friends, is everything that was posted in the community. So, moving on, 40 minutes in, not terrible. The art market is tanking. Sotheby's has even bigger problems. So, we don't have time to go through this entire article, but it is interesting. More signs that the art market, as you know, the contemporary and just traditional art market is having issues. Even Sotheby's is having issues. This is Wall Street Journal, September 24th. Kelly Crow, prominent, I would say the art reporter for the Wall Street Journal, as far as I understand, as well as Matt Vertz and Ben Foley, also helping out with the article. So the art market is, I don't want to go through all of this, but I just want to touch on a couple of things here. The art market is grinding through a rough patch, and no one is feeling the pain more than Sotheby's. Sales downturn, driven in part by China's economic slowdown and wars, U.S. elections, and they've been, here we go. Now, amid signs cash is running low, it is pushing off payments to its art shippers. So there could be a cash crunch at Sotheby's and conservators by as much as 6 months. So they're delaying payment to their contractors. Several former and current employees said Sotheby's this spring gave senior staffers IOUs instead of their incentive pay. And at a meeting this month of higher-ranking executives, some executives expressed worries about whether the company would be able to keep paying its employees on time. According to a person familiar with the discussion, I mean, you would think after the last 3 or 4 years of massive speculation in art that these companies would be flush with cash. And ultimately, isn't this just a consignment business to a certain degree where you sell the work, you get your 10%, and then the fees are not insignificant? So interesting, they have $1.8 billion in debt. And of course, interest rates not super low anymore. So pretty interesting. So just a full-on article here. And so check that out, Wall Street Journal. If you want to get through the paywall, go to X and then find the link, do a search on the story, and then you'll get through. So, I mean, if that's your jam here, you know, how the auction market is doing in contemporary art scene, there is a comprehensive article there. Let's continue. James Bloom. Intellectual art is vital, but the detached over-intellectualization of art over the last decades is a symptom of a detached culture. It appears in many different forms and is limiting in its view because it's compromised by the current culture, tech, etc. So it's quite interesting. Like, especially like here in Berlin, you'll often see very conceptual works, and I've been skeptical for a long time on this whole what I call over-sophisticated art. You know, art that's kind of really, and we see it a lot, it's almost like a hallmark to a certain degree, not exclusively or always, of contemporary art, is this, for lack of a better term, dismissing of aesthetics as being kind of this superficial aspect of art. But I would argue that is the grounding force that will make people care about it, you know, 1,000 years from now, to reference Roon Toon here. Why should that work that we opened with? I think people will care about that work in 200 years. I actually would argue that. Why? Because it just works. And it's very tastefully done. There's nothing to not like about it. Who wouldn't want that work? I would argue that work likely will stand the test of time. So I think this is interesting, because I think it's also, again, or it's almost like we're kind of starting to sense an impending death, if it hasn't already died, but the death of contemporary art. You know, like, not to overstate things here. But I think like you're seeing kind of more and more what you might call pushback on contemporary art. Very interesting, and I'm happy to track all of it here. Dean Kissick, another interesting tweet here. We're quoting Dean yesterday. or last show on Monday. Jameson, I assume Frederick Jameson, wrote in 1991 that, quote, "The writers and artists of the present day will no longer be able to invent new styles and worlds. They've already been invented. Only a limited number of combinations are possible. That's what we have now, an art of combinations." And I think actually generally true in what we might call the traditional art world. Generally. I would say there's one huge exception, which is why I continue to make physical work alongside my digital work, and that is incorporating new technological imagery and developments, say from the digital world, into the physical, makes it, I would argue, relevant again and new, quote unquote. You screen print, pixel art, or you name it, that's different, I would argue. We don't have that in the 1980s or 1990s. So in a sense, Jameson was wrong. But the spirit of what he says, I would argue, is kind of true within the context of the trad art world. Just like, again, when you go to these art fairs, you're not seeing anything that's really, to overgeneralize, to paint with a broad brush here, you'll still see works you like, but you're not seeing something that's changing your life or your world. That's more in the digital space where it goes, oh, this is a whole other way of thinking, I would argue. So it's been reduced to an art of combinations. Now, finally on this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I would also just kind of, from a completely different angle, this is the nature of technology. Combination is one of the ways that technology evolves. As I always use the example, which is taken from the book, The Nature of Technology, which we have to look at closer. Of course, we don't have time for that, as usual. But, you get the transistor, you get the engine technology, you get them all kind of combining together. And then, the widgets, everything, all of these technologies get put together. And then you have a jet plane, right? Then you have a wing, a jet engine, let's call it, right? That's through combination. So now I think the way it's being used here is that those combinations aren't going to necessarily yield anything new. So I kind of have a double kind of view on this, not to be too esoteric on this, but combination is really one of the ways that technology is pushed forward. But I think here it's being referred to as a way of saying, this thing's out of ideas. All it can do is now combine what's already been done because everything's already been done. And I'll never forget, like in 95, I used to think everything was done and I hadn't discovered techno yet, right? And I was late to the party. Meanwhile, techno was going on. And so when I see also these ideas like art's run out of ideas, as we were seeing last show, I think of myself in mid-90s when I was like, music's run out of ideas. And meanwhile, there's a complete revolution going on in the techno scene. I think it's very analogous to what's going on right now. Maybe that's why for me, I'm so enthusiastic and kind of high conviction on it. So anyways, very interesting comment again from Dean Kissick. Xerox, just a friendly PSA, public service announcement here to say that all metas and aesthetic trends have officially been exhausted. All boundaries have been pushed to their farthest limit and you can all go home now. They've all been pushed to their farthest limit and you can all go home now. So tongue-in-cheek here, one assumes, yes, it's all been done. You can all go home now. Hilarious. So a little sarcasm, I believe, from Xerox. Here's Sabato. Glitch artists have been experimenting with different compression technologies for decades before Web3 decided compressionism was a thing. Who came up with this is what I want to know. The Capybaras of Ipausu 2021 series of studies breaking down wavelet-based image compression formats from the OOs like IWF and WIC. And here are some examples here. So very interesting as usual from prominent glitch artist Sabato and pixel artist and just artist in general. And here's more different JPEG compressions. So just very interesting. Yeah, the way I see it, and of course I follow Sabato there, the way I see this compression, this compressionism thing is it's not about necessarily trying to reduce the file to the lowest size you possibly can at the expense of aesthetics. I think the balance is, because Sabato was saying, well, I like more than one color, I like generally more than 2 frames in a GIF, and this sort of thing, which I think is a fair point. In a sense, I do too. So I think the real challenge to a large degree, and I use Bitcoin because it's the biggest blockchain as an example, but it's really about kind of getting below that 10 kilobytes where maybe you have 4 colors, but you sacrifice on size. Maybe you put more colors, but you make a smaller size. Maybe you have a bigger size and you make it black and white, depending on the work. So I find that to actually be the challenge, because if you just go, hey, I'm just going to make this as small as possible, 2 frames in black and white, what's the point to a certain degree? Are we making art here, or are we just trying to make things small? So I think the balancing act is retaining aesthetic value, you might say, in the work, while keeping it as small as possible. That is the interesting balance here. Can you make something beautiful that's a kilobyte? And I think you can if you make it 8 by 8, for example, as we saw with 8Badoo. Interesting comment. Max capacity. If you do a proper, fully online digital art exhibit or drop and have documentation artists can use on their CVs, and you properly archive the announcements, I mean, I'm thinking of RGB Montreal here, and flyers, then you're just as legit as any physical gallery. Plenty of legit physical galleries don't do a good job of that. Interesting point. You know, there are a lot of physical galleries that will not do that for you. Very interesting point. Pablo. Art and collectibles is an investment. Let's be real. It's a brutal game. Most will lose money, and the market isn't just tough, it's borderline ruthless, especially in digital art where high experimentation rules. Only a tiny fraction will profit, and trust me, you're probably not in that cabal. This is a very, very, very long-term play. If you're just here for the money, you're in the wrong place. But if you're here for the culture, for the love and passion, then you're on the right path. It may cost you time and money, but the cultural reward is priceless. It's an interesting point. I don't really disagree with it. I think it depends. Like, in the sense that, like, I think the story my dad used to tell me about, there were 2 sisters in Chicago who bought like a truckload or like a massive amount of Impressionist works, which are the reason, as far as I understand, there are a lot of Impressionist works in Chicago. What is it? The Art Institute of Chicago. I guess they probably had to wait 30 or 40 years. Like, I don't know how long that took for that to pay off. So I kind of agree with this, but I would say it's an interesting investment class, shall we say, if you are thinking of it that way. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I kind of agree with the idea that if you're really here just to make money, you're probably best off as a flipper. Right? That's probably your best bet. You buy a Yuri J and you double the price, and then you help pay for your collecting. I mean, that's probably the best way. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't do it myself, but I mean, that's probably the simplest way to make money. So I hope people don't do that. But I mean, people are going to it's a free market. People are going to do what they're going to do. So anyways, interesting comment. Unknown collector. Of course, I follow Happy Tezos Tuesday. I will be purchasing art on Tezos, also without art shares, because self-exploring on Object and FX Hash is 90% of the fun. Indeed, it is fun. It's also it's an educational journey. Let's continue with what UC is saying. Developing my taste and building a collection that represents that taste and its development is so meaningful to me. Indeed, it's a kind of a journey of self-discovery to a certain degree. Collecting art, I would say. And it's a weird fascination and obsession. I really have to be careful, because once I start collecting, it almost happened to me the other day, where all of a sudden I started buying work again. I was like, slow down. Don't spend all your money, literally, on digital art. Tradscape, we can't read all this. Of course, Tradscape makes the music, the intro and the outro for this show. But there we see the kitchen. Looks like it's in much better shape here. It looks like a little bit of repairing has been done here, and just a big thank you. I'll read one paragraph here. I don't know how I can thank all of you. I'll find a way though. The donations added up to around $700. I believe this will be plenty to at least get all the materials and tools I need to fix the serious issues. So very cool. And yeah, I've consulted a contractor friend, and considering the fact that the full roof replacement just isn't a financial possibility, we've decided to replace full shingle sheets in a couple of places and then basically tar patch the entire roof to hopefully extend its lifespan. So there's the roof. So anyways, just awesome to see people helping out Tradscape. And hopefully we see more art. It looked like Tradscape was going to start posting art maybe after the roof is finished. There's that very cool waterfall that we're looking at based on what looked like a 18th or 19th century painting. Mike Bespalov, who I think put together this, remember this Pixel software, putting the final touches on my Figma plugin for dithering effects. Excited to share it with everyone soon. Stay tuned for the drop. So I kind of want to buy this. This kind of looks like everything you kind of wanted from your digital or pixel art, dithering tool, but you, like here, what I love about this is actually how you can kind of adjust here, then you can adjust here, then you can adjust here. I love the precision you seem to be able to get with this. This is a very cool tool. It's kind of ridiculous it's taken so long. But it's kind of like, it's almost, just as pixel art seems to be kind of flourishing, I would argue right now, in the last 2 or 3, 4 years, even though it's been around. We have eBoy actually in this show. It's interesting that this tool is only coming around now. Yuri J, how to make a gas stove in 3 examples. So what looks like the development here of a Yuri J. Look at how simple this is. And I love how over here, not making it perfect. Here we see, the stove, nice little drawing, interesting combination of free lines and what look like just like, vector or some sort of line tool, but not worrying about making it perfect, right? I think very importantly. And then here, fixing up the oven a little bit, but keeping kind of the roughness in the drawing here, but then you see the precision in the oven, and I love the texture inside the oven, really reminiscent of the actual pans you'll find in an oven. So very interesting. And finally, here is the final result. And you see the doubling, right, of, a really cool technique by Yuri J, just to kind of complicate it a bit, make it a little weird, very cool, original way of doing things, doubling the canvas or certain layers and extending them, but not all, interestingly. So very, very cool. This is also interesting, a sketch by Yuri J, and interesting how the sponge really jumps out at you there, black and white. So very cool. Maybe this is just a black and white export, but there is color here. So different ways of working from Yuri J. This one looks fantastic. This looks like the cooking work, doesn't it? Jake Studios. Piece will be later live today. So again, more works in progress. We can see Jake Studios here. Really cool, kind of intuitively working, surreal illustrator. Following his own kind of path, following the lines that he's making to a certain degree, as I kind of like to say, following the music that my pen makes on this paper to a certain degree. Very intuitive is what I'm trying to say here. Let's continue. Zozo, Square Sunday. So Zozo, pretty interesting. Some graph paper here behind the scenes. BTS with Zozo, pretty interesting. I remember this guy, Hermipe Pixel Art. Guy or girl, gal, I'm not sure. Look at how beautiful this is. So I don't think it says, here it is. Wood engraving. Wood engraving. Wet paper sucks the ink better, but it's a pain to manage. So I imagine this could not have been done by hand. Like, is this a laser created wood engraving? Again, if you want to find the energy in art, if you want to find the new in art, you go with the technology. You find the new technology and, for example, laser engraving, I assume that's what's going on here, Maybe it's a whole other process that I don't even know about. But look at this, and all of a sudden you have novel imagery with this black on white paper, and it looks fantastic. Also love this kind of juxtaposed composition, putting them side by side, these two images. Brilliant and beautiful. This artist is exciting, very exciting pixel artist, Julio Santos. Landscape is captured through machine learning and then painted by both a drawing plotter robot and by hand by the artist. So a combination of plotting and also painting on their own, Julio Santos. By collecting this token, you'll receive the physical painting. Pretty rad there too. And look at this. We were discussing this on the Spaces of Myth doing. I asked Myth about if he was doing some physical painting. Here's Myth doing the lemon head on cardboard, even getting that Myth blue and clouds and everything. Pretty rad, and there's some masks. Very cool artist. That's on Surreal app. Very cool. Of course, I follow the Myth there too. And there's Luciana Guerra. Finally, I have been awarded the second prize of the National Arts Salon in Concordia, Argentina. Proud and happy to receive such a prize in my country. First time also a digital painting receives recognition in this saloon. We are making history. I think that's Salon. So digital artwork, first time Argentina recognized in that what looks like a pretty official competition. Big congrats to Luciana Guerra, whose work is just over there. Awesome to see her getting success. As we move into the works here, Pouring the Tears into the Garden, Kazuhiro Ehara. This is from September 22nd. Very interesting piece, and I think I brought it up bigger here. So this is on Foundation, and just kind of wild, abstract. It looks like digital, though. It's got a kind of a physical, textured feel, but I think this is purely digital. As you see here, these look like digital brushes. So, recollecting our earlier discussion on that Jeremy was mentioning about physical brushes, I don't care anymore. I do. I think about it, as I was discussing earlier. But I'm no longer concerned, shall we say, about, this is a digital brush emulating a physical brush. I'm just kind of like, if it looks good, it looks good. It's all digital, however it gets there, right? Whether it's AI making a oil painting. Some of those are beautiful too. We're going to see two stellar ones by Strange Thing at the end of the show. Let's continue. Gozo, Swarm. Another interestingly textured work here. So digital collage, I believe, also using for the texture, I believe these textual inverters from Stable Diffusion, a little bit of AI. Beautiful work here. Swarm by Gozo, that is 0.1 ETH and just minted on September 23rd, a couple of days ago. And I think this is a new one, I'm not positive, by RJ, where you can barely tell it's a figure. Love this fill. And here, again, very cool edges here. They're quite crisp. Here, not so crisp, but love the edges here. Just really interesting work. And also adding some animation into the work here. If you go over here, you'll see what looks like this static version. And here, adding some animation. I wonder if that's AI that is bringing in. I mean, it's pretty incredible. Look at the textures that RJ gets on the left and right of the image. Pretty interesting. Look at the remote control, all of it. Very interesting work. This is on Internet People. This is on Tezos. Not exactly sure what's supposed to be in the background here, but we see just another kind of beautifully rendered figure here. Here is 100, 101, and look at these kind of patterning and digital stuff, digital textures just kind of combining, overlapping with the head. And look at this fill over here. Huge fan of the magic wand over here. Internet People 110. And here again, look at this. So again, it kind of looks like that Stable Diffusion texture. If I had to hazard a guess, that we see on Gozo's work there too. Love the eyes here too. Look at that, huge work. These are 3,500 by 3,500, so much larger than the works we were looking at yesterday. Here's ASCII with a cool painting. I'm not sure if I've seen this online, and I thought just an interesting example, breaking it down here into its different components. As you see the different frames, all of the animation work really that goes into ASCII's work and all of these different renderings. There are several artworks in one could argue here. Very beautiful work from ASCII. Of course, I follow Ed Marola. I don't remember exactly how that happened. So good to see Ed out of Brazil. So luckily we can track Ed's work on Object. And here we see just a very cool painting. And here it's almost like that string that was joining everybody together. And here is kind of a variation on that. And look at that. Look at that frame. This rad frame here. So super interesting work by Ed Marola. That is 250 Tezos, 1 of 1. Here is Rat Cloak, Magical History Tour, page 57. So interesting, shares the reference here. Magical History Tour, and here you see these guys climbing a mountain, and then it turns into the Rat Cloak figure. Beautifully painted. Interesting colors and lack of colors. Nice underpainting there of the red that's kind of let to bleed through. All of it. Even the text is beautiful. Even this kind of sky. Adding color to a black and white work. Beautiful work. Now this one, I mean, I'm kind of thinking this might, is that me? I think in L'Inquisiteur, I don't want to assume, but I kind of thought, as soon as I saw that, I thought maybe this is me. Passport for Paradise, and one was sent to me too, which also kind of raised my antennae there. Beautifully painted, by the way, by L'Inquisiteur. Look at this red. This red on orange. Beautiful. Republic of Tezos, your passport. And there, is that a lemonade? Obviously, what do you expect a passport costs? $1.99, $1.99 Tezos. So hilarious. A big thank you to L'Inquisiteur, if that is me. I don't want to assume, but it is tempting to think so. Very cool. And again, available for 2 Tezos, an edition of 100. Another spectacular work by Nov 1914, Beiladores, obra de Fernando Botero, Eca por mí, so I think echoed by me. Look at how, I don't know the original here, but the colors in this work, similar to that other work we saw the other day. Utterly spectacular, what's going on here. And this awesome frame. In a sense, they're so kind of, rough's the wrong word, but you see the frame, it's not trying to be perfect, but it's kind of the charm in it. And even just the figures, the dress, the bottles, it's just putting a straight up gradient through. It looks like it's the same kind of spaced out gradient where you just change the colors. I could be wrong. I probably am. This is spectacular and interesting to have this little area here that looks kind of drawn a little bit, as well as this kind of what looks like a window. I guess that's from the original artist that did that, but spectacular work selling out at 13 Tezos. And very cool work there, edition of 7. Zozo, picked up by Absurd Deity. Huge enthusiasm from Absurd Deity on... I love this work. I love the sports. The ping pong one was spectacular as well. I hope we see more of these sports. I love sports as a theme. Kind of really underrated theme. Very inspiring. Run Fast and Left My Mind Behind. Zozo has a real knack for just kind of capturing certain feelings. Here's another one, brand new, Apples I'm Home. Kind of a weird one. No audio, interestingly. And there is, look at those massive pixels. And then here, wild work from Zozo, who continues to put out work at least once a day. Very cool. Apples I'm Home. It's a wild one, kind of obscure. Still available, 60 Tezos, 1 of 1. Here is Sailor Morcos with a work. I'm not sure if it's a work in progress, but I love these rectangles here. And then put over top, again, kind of a gradient artist, you might say, to a certain degree. And anyway, it could go with Dan Control and Nov 1914, maybe in the same shows, just with the use of gradients. I would dare to put those together. Giant Chef, this is Rinny Fish with a beautiful new work, great colors. Interesting music. Look at this background with the stars and all the little figures translucent, psychedelic kind of pastels. Very cool work here from Rooney Fish, edition of 10, and sold out at 11 Tezos. Congratulations. Nice work. And very interesting piece. First Syndrome on X. Very cool work here, kind of a racetrack theme. And here you see some drivers and everything. Kind of interesting rendering here. How the people almost turn into this kind of light bright pattern. And there's the racetrack. Thought this was brilliant. PP Universal. I have never seen Spider-Man done like this. It kind of looks like a physical. I'm not sure. I'd love to see more of this. This is brilliant. This is so cool. I almost want to see like the entire Marvel Universe colored like this. Like this is really cool. PP Universal. Not sure. I think it's digital. Not positive. Just saw it on Instagram. Here's another one by PP with a bit more texture in it. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Interesting composition here. Huge file. And here you see some dithering for the texture and in some areas, at least on the gun. And then in other areas you see patterning and there's the bullet chambers and everything. Interesting piece. And there's the hand. And it looks like it's using, you know, who knows what it's using as the source image there. Very cool work. Maybe it's using this whole, you know, composition and then putting it inside as a brush. Almost looks like that. Walk, the Reading Madonna. So again, Walk putting out about a work a day. And here, just another really cool reference to what looks like probably a Renaissance artwork with Walk's style. Here is Victor Arce, LXTXCX, and again, celebrating the iconography of the Windows operating system, probably Windows 95. 99, 99, Magic 98, maybe it's Windows 98. Very cool work there on X. Here's Katarina Create, Touch of Grass. And so a new work, I believe, by Katarina, and very cool, as you see, the artists continue to evolve here. Love the combination of the hair and the grass and almost kind of mixing into each other. 0.015 ETH and edition of 10. And so that is an edition. And yeah, when was this minted? Does it say? Maybe with editions. I think it was just done yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Lewis Harriet, The Phantom Calibration. Kind of a surreal illustrator here. So interesting color, kind of here, and interesting composition and subject. As you can see here, almost kind of magical totem-like work. Buy now for 0.4 or start an auction at 0.2. And this was done August 30th, so a few weeks ago. Here's another interesting kind of illustration, we might say, by The Myth, who of course I follow. Kind of The Myth on a horse, almost like the Polo Ralph Lauren horse. And there's The Myth. And so another kind of very minimal, unpainterly, more illustrative myth work. And here's another illustration, Louis Osborne. Please rate our service. And again, playing with the happy and the sad faces here and beating up on the machine here. Hilariously. And here's another one, Spreading Joy. So interesting combination of color and black and white here with the buildings and grays. Interesting piece by Louis Osborne. That looks like it was burnt, perhaps. And here, another illustrator, Seba Sestaro out of Buenos Aires. Again, does very kind of psychological illustrations, and these are great. Huge flowers, people in a shopping mall, in these very modern kind of architectural settings. Very cool artist. Here's Ranixtier with some interesting minimal gradient works. This is on Zora. Gradients Are Not Real, cool title. 116, 227 minted, I believe. And here's another one. Also just posted by Ranixtier, just cool, minimal colors, consistently putting out works and exploring kind of minimal gradients. Here's another interesting piece. MCHX sometimes collaborates with Ranixtier. Interesting work by MCHX, I believe. And here you see just kind of interesting kind of rendering here, abstraction, digital abstraction. Let's continue. Santiago, map of the rest of the day. Usually these files are just enormous. So I opened this with a certain degree of hesitation, but look at the payoff. Look at how much is in here. There's AI, there is pixel art, there is kind of effects as you see it all getting smushed together. You get these great negative space here, margins, for lack of a better term. Looks like kind of erased. Interesting as ever. Map, an awesome title. Map of the Rest of the Day, 5 Tezos, 5 sold, by Santiago. Here's another one by Santiago, and Unwelcome to the Past, more of a pixel art, for lack of a better term, abstract work. Pretty massive, though, as we see here. So very interesting work here in this massive body of work that Santiago has created. Selling for 4 Tezos, edition of 100. Interesting piece by Macro Matrai. Very minimal kind of work here. Nice work, kind of these horizontal pixel lines. Very interesting piece called Bukla, edition of 8, only a Tezos, 2 sold, 1 to Dr. Version, 1 to Kiro. Here's Kareem Safa, PC 7, Pattern Cycling 7. Cool black and white kind of pixel art, animated abstract, shall we say, or geometric, abstract, pixel art, geometric, who knows? Black and white, very cool. You see the dithering come in and out, beautifully rendered here. 270 by 270 multiplied by 4 times, 2 colors, 64 frames, edition of 15, and still available, which is pretty cool. Nicholas Sassoon, small RGB study, 240, another small work. So this last one, 270 by 270, this one 240 by 240. 109 kilobytes. Again, very, I would argue, Bitcoin friendly. And here, it looks like RGB, conceptually very interesting, right? Red, green, and blue, and maybe white or not. Not sure. It looks like just RGB. Very interesting. It looks like you kind of have this moving pattern over top. It's actually hard to say. Not sure what's going on. It's probably programming. Let's continue. How to Craft a Friend. This is by Sabato, the Chrome series. And here it is, skull, pleasant visage. And here is maybe the friend, token of trust, scaly patterns, eyeballs. So almost the components to make this figure here are all being kind of put in this very cool kind of user interface, UI format. Love it. How to Craft a Friend, edition of 22 for 22 Tezos, and it's probably going to be sold out pretty soon. Figments, Room of the Eternal Void. Look at that. I missed this one, unfortunately. Just fills the screen here. Very cool work. There's the little soul figure and the dog accompanying Room of the Eternal Void by Figments, also known as Cap'n. Only 14 Tezos on secondary. The Human Mind, this is 16 Tezos, probably on primary. And also here you see the same figures here of the figure. Look at that beautiful horizontal pixeled fire with this beautiful animation here, I think done in GIMP. And then the figure, the dog, and then computers plugged into a skull. Very interesting. Love this kind of ground grid, The Human Mind, and interesting title. Here's mech.txt. I do have to shorten these shows. Here's mech.txt, continuing with this red and blue, and also black and white, so 4 colors. And so interesting at Pompeii, and playing with this kind of classical theme, and kind of, again, this kind of tiling, kind of 2x1 tiling in the spirit of a 80s video game. Remembering Iphigenia, another work by mech.txt, edition of 20. And again, going with these very strong red and pure blue. And that's 220 by 258, and then multiplied by 10. Very interesting work there. Memories woven through Ruken Figur. This is by Noodler. So here, using, interestingly, just a small color palette. Interesting animations here as we see the stairway going up into these different kind of architectural cubes. We see, interestingly, the complementary colors, orange and blue, being used here. And there's the figure who is just static looking on. Interesting. 5 Tezos, edition of 22. Here is Right Click Dead, also known as Brain Dead. I think Brain Dead, Brain Click. Right Click Dead, Purgatory Room number 9. And let's see if we can zoom in. So very cool work, almost reminiscent of a classical statue or something. And here the eyeballs come in. And so interesting kind of pixel art machine here from is it Brain Click or Brain Dead? I'm kind of blanking on that. Anyway, right click dead on Super Rare is where you can find that piece. eBoy Arts, eBoy times Lufthansa, Shanghai. So Tiro is the one who pointed out eBoy to me, who is two people, I believe out of Germany. There's Lufthansa, and they are considered pioneers of pixel art, so well worth knowing. And here you can see it looks like San Francisco when you see that building, and the other one maybe is Shanghai. And that kind of looks like the pictures. I've never been to Shanghai. Very cool pixel art from eBoy Arts. Here's Element Lee. Love these works. Kind of looks like the fashion designer or costume designer for theater is what this looks like. A drawing remake of my 2008 installation. Very cool pixel art work here. Experimental pixel art by Element Lee. Green Ginger, now two down to go. So I think this is a work in progress, but it's looking pretty cool. You see the volcano here. You see this interesting sphere. You even see the window around it. Interesting work by Green Ginger, also a duo. And then here is Manital Art with P with the 1. And this is on, I guess, foundation. Very beautiful color in this piece. And they're almost like a Monet-like scene. And there are the cats. And there is the other cat painting. Beautiful color here. And here is the static version. Here is Takashoshi. This is on Surreal app. And yeah, I wonder, is there a way? Yeah, there it is. Takashoshi, and this is, I believe, called Surreal Journey, and you can kind of see a car. So very big chunks, big chunky pixels here is the clouds come in and out. That's on Surreal app. And Silva Santus with a Nintendo glitch ROM that's called Tired. Beautiful composition here. As we start to wrap up this show, just beautiful work here by Silva Santus. Love the glitch of this person kind of, and they're coming back. 896 frames. Pretty big. I mean, that's a small movie here. 2 minted so far, 2 days to go. It's probably a pretty long work. And also, Haiti Rocket with a new Nintendo glitch ROM. This is Totally Dope, I believe is what this is called. And there's Haiti Rocket, copyright, buy yourself a pizza, go get yourself a pizza, rad. So just very cool work, kind of minimal. I love the minimal works, even just like the little kind of flashing area here by Haiti Rocket. Very cool, still available, only 12 Tezos. Glitchtown Arcade 52, another glitch ROM, but maybe added several flashing through many glitches here, I think. Interesting frame there too. That's an edition of 1 for only 4 Tezos right now at auction. There are bids on it. Ex-Mortal Merlot. And here you see a pretty rad work here. Analog video glitch. Another beautiful. Look at these glitches from Ex-Mortal, who we just had on the Spaces called Merlot. And it's edition of 11, and I believe sold out at 11 Tezos. And now 33 on secondary. Pretty cool work here by LB. Gonna Halt the Music. There you have the model, I believe, by Kraftwerk. So we don't want to break the copyright there. But so anyway, interesting glitching by LB. There's Kraftwerk, the model. Das Modell. Here is Spiegel's Maskinen. Look at this work. This is on Tea, also known as Object, also on Object, all on Tezos. Very rad artwork. Could have easily started the show with this work by Spiegel's. Beautiful. I think it's called Webworm or something. What is it called? Worldwide Worm. Very cool. From Spiegel's Maskinen. Here's Renki, Higashi Kanazawa. And here, Renki continues to surprise and dazzle. Beautiful color, I might add. Love the grid. Love the simplicity. Edition of 1 and offer of 10 Tezos so far. Generally, Renki doesn't list, but if you put in an offer, sometimes it gets accepted. Coda Nakazono, Continuum number 209, amazingly. So here, cool glitches in the background. I have this what looks like a CGI animation of a kind of metallic blob in the front. Edition of 5, and sold out at 10 Tezos each from Coda Nakazono. Here's Salawaki with a CGI GLB. Do you believe in life after naps? And here, someone is taking a nap on the pillows. Life of a True Napster, and that is edition of 25, and I think sold out at 6 Tezos. Nice work for Salawaki. And I thought this was hilarious. I thought to myself, people of Tezos, this would be like the perfect image of people of Tezos. Perhaps, just a thought, a really hilarious image here by Salawaki. And here, as we go into AI, is Strange Thing. Look at these colors here. The majesty of a Renaissance painting here, but with contemporary clothing. Love the clothing here. Just gorgeous. Here's another one. Very, very cool work from Strange Thing, as usual. Look at this. GM, excited to finally share this with you alongside 1703 Collective, Havas Events, the world's first press agency showcasing two of my works at the Private AI, my sparring partner exhibition in Paris. One, and we see this transient lab trace chip again, interestingly. Lily Illo was using that too. So congratulations to Strange Thing. Those look spectacular. Here is AKF Kinga Feketa, detail of an artwork. And so just kind of cool VR figure here, also using AI. And also the Muses by Danielle King. Very cool. Never saw this before, so kind of a more painterly look. Still AI. Very, very cool. Looks great. A beautiful painting we've never seen before. Let's continue. Here's Lily Illo with a portrait also. This kind of looks like it was printed, doesn't it? When you see the frame here, it kind of looks like printed on wood as well. Hard to say. And no clues given here. And here is Bazaya. I believe these are AI because we're seeing quite a few come out, and they seem to be combinations. Not positive, but I think they are. Pretty sure they are. Interesting to see artists remix their work. Pretty cool, using their own work. I believe that's what's going on. Edition of 10, selling out at 5 Tezos each. And here is Tukes with a cool work of these, again, something you'd only see made by AI. And the desert. And here's another work by Tukes, a pretty rad artwork. Do we have a Desire Dreams and the Infinite? Very interesting AI artwork. Here's Skamra with some beautiful textures here, cool composition, kind of reminiscent of also the RJ style or RJ reminiscent of Skamra, however you want to put it. It looks like using Stable Diffusion, let's put it that way, textures. And here, more of these awesome margins, and here's the person on the computer, and just beautiful, also by Skamra. And here is White Solitude called Pendulum. I believe this is AI. Hilarious. Like, this is how persuasive this is getting. I believe, because White Solitude, yeah, it is. Artwork by White Solitude in collaboration with AI, but I think these are AI textures, incredibly. So it's at a certain point, it's not going to matter anymore, especially once we get the technology to emulate that, to 3D print that canvas. Canik Zapata with an interesting artwork. This is on Foundation. I believe this is AI, kind of a glitch artist using a ton of AI. Very interesting, edgy artist. And there's no hygiene with what looks like, I didn't know what this was. It looks like, that looks like a podium that someone would speak at, and there's the angel here in the middle of a landscape. Just wild, wild work here from No Hygiene. 5,000 views, good work. That's on Object. Bjorn Kaleha. So as we go into the physicals, just interesting work here I found on X. Never seen this artist before. Interesting circular work, very modern looking. Here's Moto Hiro with more kind of wild, irrational, you might say, drawings. Just a really cool drawer. Here's another one with a big turkey on a semi-trailer. And here, just doing simple juxtapositions. I think the surrealists would love this guy. Just doing simple juxtapositions. Here's a head, but also a person. Here is Steven Schwartzer. I believe this is Risodruk, so more Riso printing. Look at that. So Riso printing, and I think done on pink paper. And I think you just put 4 A3s together, and all of a sudden you have a massive work. That's how you do it. Love this guy. Steven Schwartzer, I believe out of Germany. Gregorio Zanardi, Fly or Die Little Bird, sold to RD to the Moon. So very cool work here. Nice physical from Gregorio. Love the fingers here and the sacks and just the expressionism of that. Here is Martin Bruce posting this wild painting here. Super edgy always, Martin Bruce here, as you see in this work. And here is Walk with a picture of the moon. Very simple, very beautiful, gorgeously executed as ever. And that is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Little Cakes today. Come check it out. If you can't, we'll have the recording on the X Space. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time, take care.